Welcome again to another one of our weekly press conferences. Before we get into the press conference, I'd like to ask the Honourable Kyle Hodge to bless us with a word of prayer.
Thank you. Let's pray. Heavenly Father God, we thank you for your love. We thank you for your mercies, and we thank you for your grace, Lord. We thank you for this another day that you've allowed us to be here on this press conference. We say a special prayer, dear God, for those who are mourning the passing of loved ones, God. We just pray that you may grant them the strength that is necessary to be able to cope, God. We continue to pray for Anguilla and the COVID situation. Father, we thank you for the health team. Thank you for the press. We look forward to this press conference. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Thank you very much, Minister. I would like to first apologize for the absence of Dr. Aisha Andrin, who is off island at the moment, and also apologize on the absence of the Honourable Kenneth Hodge, Minister of Home Affairs, the Honourable Premier, and the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary, who is away on the joint ministerial council meetings, and they'll be joined by Ms. Dorothea Hodge. So before, we would like to just get right into the health briefings. We have our resident experts, Ms. Rochelle Rogers, and Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Health, Mr. Foster Rogers. Yes?
Thank you very much, Acting Premier, and good afternoon, everyone. The normal updates in terms of world reports are normally done on a Wednesday by the WHO. So the figures we have for the world updates would be for the end of last week, Wednesday, thereabout. According to the WHO, whose report for November 9th, the global number of new cases increased slightly over the previous week, over 1%, to just over 3.1 million cases reported in the past week, 1st to 7th of November. This is largely attributed to significant increases of new cases in the European Union, European system, 7%, with all other regions reporting declines or stable figures. However, the number of deaths increased slightly, 4%, compared to the previous week, with just over 48,000 new deaths during that period. Though new deaths did increase in the European region compared to the previous week, of over 10%. The regions with the highest weekly incident rates of cases and deaths per 100,000 population were the European region and the region of the Americas, and reported the highest weekly case of 208.9 and 68.6 cases per 100,000 population, respectively, and a death incidence of 2.9 and 1.3 new deaths per 100 per 1,000 population, respectively. The US is the country with the highest number of reported cases in the region, of 510, 968 new cases, or a 3% decrease. As of 7th November, over 249 million confirmed cases worldwide, and 5 million deaths have been recorded since the start of the pandemic. Three major developments on the global scene are as follows. The US have decreed that travelers from any country entering the US from November 8th must be vaccinated, as long as you are not a resident or a citizen, with some exceptions. The UK will add China's Sinovac and Sinopharm and India's Covaxin vaccines to the country's approved list of COVID-19 vaccines for inbound travel. And we have an update today, and I know some person in the audience will be very pleased with that. On November 5th, Britain's Medicines and Healthcare Products Regulatory Agency recommended a drug, molnupiravir, for use in people with mild to moderate COVID-19 disease and at least one risk factor for developing severe illnesses such as obesity, older age diabetes, and heart disease. In the Caribbean region, the Caribbean saw a slight increase. The region's total confirmed cases stands at 2,104,978 cases in 35 countries, including 26 CARFA member states. The new total represents a 1% increase over November 8, 2021. Some member states continue to experience increases in a number of positive cases, with the number of cases surpassing 419,183 in CARICOM member states. Though declines in the number of cases have been observed in some Caribbean countries from the September peak, several countries still experiencing situations ranging from cluster outbreaks to community transmission. In Anguilla, as of Monday 15th, midday today, 38 new cases were identified since Friday, 77 active now cases of COVID-19, 1,175 cases confirmed total, 1,095 recoveries total, 3 deaths due to COVID, 1 death of a COVID positive person, but the death was not due to COVID. Current hospitalizations, 6, 5 for COVID, and 1 as a prolonged admissions. I'll now ask the health planner to bring us up to date on vaccination figures.
As of Monday the 15th at 12 p.m., Anguilla had issued 9,918 first doses of a COVID-19. Sorry, if you're not hearing me clearly, I'll start over. As of today, midday, the 15th November, Anguilla had issued 9,918 first doses of a COVID-19 vaccine and 9,161 second doses. Last week, Monday on the 8th, we began the administration of the Pfizer vaccine for persons 12 to 17 years old, any new adults, and we also gave boosters. In terms of the total vaccines, Pfizer vaccines that we gave out last week, it was 582 total. That represents first doses of 358, of which 301 were for persons aged 12 to 17, and we gave out 224 boosters. Those are last week's figures. We continue to give out first doses this week and boosters to all those who are interested. That's the vaccination update.
And with regard to the acceptance of the UK with Sinovac, Sinopharm, and Covaxin, they have indicated that they will begin accepting persons with these 4 a.m. on the 22nd of November. So more than likely we will do the same at that date as well, which will have to be confirmed by Executive Council as soon as possible. But now the information from the UK is that in addition to the AstraZeneca, Pfizer, Moderna, and Janssen, they will now accept Sinovac, Sinopharm, Beijing, and Covaxin beginning the 22nd of this month. Thank you, Mr. Premier.
Any questions for the health team? Brenda, Daily Herald.
Good afternoon. Thank you. I would just like to say that I had friends coming into the airport recently, and they were full of commendations for everybody there, the customs, the health people, the taxi drivers. They said it was a very good welcome. So I just thought I would pass that on, because it's good to know. But at the same time, I've been hearing from quite a number of people who've come in that the real hassle is the application forms for entry to Anguilla. They seem to be causing a lot of anxiety. I think we said this last week. And people are waiting till the last minute to know whether they can come. When I say the last minute, maybe the last day, as to whether they can come in or not. So my question is, are there any plans to change this protocol for entry in the future, maybe to abandon it or whatever? I know the testing will still be necessary, but I'm talking about all the forms and application. Thank you.
We have no plans at this point in time to abandon the application process, but certainly we can look at refining it, probably making it a little more user-friendly. We have had that comment as well from different persons, but we do need an application process to vet persons coming to the island. In fact, Anguilla is not the only country doing it, but at the end of the day, we have to ensure that persons are complying with the regulations coming to Anguilla, and only we can do that is through some assessment before they travel. So if, for the near future, we do not see us getting away from it, but certainly we will be looking at ways of making it more efficient to ensure that we capture the information we need, while at the same time making the ease of travel better for persons to come. Because the idea is simply not to get information, but it is to get good information and pertinent information. So certainly we will look at maybe revising it in a way that we can still get information and have people's travel plans a little more efficient.
Foster, you give me some good news just now, right? In reference to the acceptance of the Chinese vaccine, because that was one of my questions being asked weekly for a number of weeks now. Still on travel, what are the protocols? When do we expect that the day trippers to St. Martin will be, and what are protocols that are going to be put in place?
So we don't have a date yet. I know this week the prefect was supposed to have met with the governor, but at the last minute he could not come over because of activities in St. Martin. I use the word activities. So he couldn't come over. But they are in the process of making alternative arrangements so we can have those discussions with the prefect in St. Martin. In fact, I met with Mr. Colin Hicks this morning from the governor's office, the chief of staff there. And we are trying to find a different way of having the governor and the prefect meet so we can sort out these issues in terms of persons going back and forth. We are aware that there will be protocols, certainly, and we did take those protocols to Executive Council last week. We will be announcing them shortly, but it will have a leeway for a person to travel and come back the same day or overnight without having to test, but certainly maybe a test on the fourth day, without quarantine either, but certainly a test on day 4 to ascertain person's status. But we want to make it easier for people to go to St. Martin and come back. First of all, you have to be vaccinated. There will not be an allowance for persons who are not vaccinated to take day trips to St. Martin. And this not only impacts St. Martin, but will mean day trips to St. Bart's as well. Day trips you have to be vaccinated. You go over, you come back the same day or overnight, no more than one night. You will not test either when you leave or when you come back, but you'll probably do a test on day 4 to ascertain person's status. And we will do that for a while until we get a picture of what's happening, and then we may be able to drop that day 4 test totally, but there will be no quarantine period. So we're trying to find a way to facilitate travel to St. Martin for day trips for Anguillians in a safe way that allows the trade to continue. Because as you can imagine, in particular, the boats going to the French side have not been operating since March of 2020, and that's over a year of a business being shut down, and these boats have had to be stored in St. Martin and paying fees for storage. So not only are they not making money, but they are hemorrhaging because they have to keep the boats in seaworthy condition. So we are trying to find a way to, and we will find that way to allow passengers to day trip safely. We've come to the point now where we think we can do that through the protocols we've approved in Executive Council last week. For day trips, the way testing works, if you're in Anguilla, you're here already, you would have already tested positive through some mechanism, some surveillance mechanism, or you're negative. We wouldn't necessarily test you before you go to St. Martin. We won't test you before you come, unless St. Martin requires that test. We will have to comply with the regulations of St. Martin. But in terms of our regulations, if you're going to go to St. Martin for the day, we will not require a test for you to leave. If you come back one day, a test coming back on day 1 will not tell you anything. It doesn't make sense to waste reagents and test for day trips to St. Martin. So it doesn't make sense to test as well. But we will do some surveillance after day 4 to see what's happening, to give us an idea of of the, if there are any positives and so forth. And we will do that surveillance for a while to see if it's necessary, or we may drop it, depending on whether it makes sense to use those reagents in that capacity. But for the initial few months, we will be doing tests at day 4, but there will be no need to quarantine. Well, this is mostly local cases. We had a couple on arrival. We had a couple arrival cases over the weekend, but not many. Of course, we continue to encourage guests to come, and the testing procedure follows, and we pick up a couple there. But the majority of the cases are local cases in the community. So yes, the good news is that the active cases is now down to 77. Some of those are a couple imported cases that we've indicated. But we are dropping in terms of the number of active cases. And our test positivity rate is also decreasing. We have gone down now to about 5.6, 5.7% test positivity, as opposed to the 11% we had a couple of weeks before. So we are looking to keep this trend. Hopefully we can continue our test positivity downwards, so we can get our numbers, active cases downward over the next few weeks. That's a discussion we have to have. We haven't gotten that level as yet, but that's a discussion we have to have with the education department to see how we can facilitate that. The good thing is we now have vaccine for school-age children. We encourage all parents to bring their children in, ages 12 to 17, to ensure that we get them immunized. And we are waiting the UK Medicines Council to give us approval for the age 5 to 11 as well. And when that approval comes, we will be vaccinating those children as well. So we will continue to look at the situation and make those decisions for school opening.
Hi, good afternoon.
Okay. Just a moment. Yes, I am pleased with the rollout for last week. We did meet the internal target figures that we had for the children for last week. We continue to encourage parents to come out. It's available for the entirety of this week at the same site, the Campus B Auditorium, between the hours of 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. and 1:30 to 3:45 p.m. So I'm encouraged by the numbers. I'm encouraged by the number of persons that actually showed up for boosters. We didn't think persons would be so enthusiastic, but they are showing up and they are contacting us, and now they are free to walk in to get their boosters. We do want persons to know there are certain qualifiers for boosters at this time. So what that means is not everyone is eligible at this time for a booster. So you must have received your second dose more than 6 months ago. So if you just got it, I think we had someone show up who got theirs in September, that's too early for a booster. So know that it has to be more than 6 months ago, and then you have to be one of the categories that we have: persons 50 years and older, persons with underlying health conditions, example, diabetes, immunocompromised, lung and heart disease. Those persons are encouraged to come out. Healthcare workers, and persons in elderly care facilities, we're actually going to go to them, so they don't need to come to us. But we are encouraged thus far. We just would like more persons to come out, especially as we have this site right now, a centrally located lot space, so we want persons to come out while we have this site operating.
We are aware of the case. It was brought to our attention last week. And I know it was also brought to attention of the Education Department, but actually does have the responsibility for administering the Education Act. I think the parent is looking into into options as to how to deal with this. But we will encourage schools, whether they're private or government schools, to ensure that they follow the laws of the country and that they follow, well, I was going to say science, but not everybody believes in science. But you cannot get infected with COVID from someone who has been immunized by COVID from the vaccination itself. None of the COVID vaccinations give you live virus, live SARS-CoV-2 virus. None of them. Some of them give you pieces of RNA from the spike protein. Some of them, like Pfizer and Moderna. Some of them give you pieces of the RNA again through what we call a vector adenovirus, like Johnson & Johnson and AstraZeneca and some of the others. None of the viruses give none of the vaccines, that is, give live whole virus. Therefore, it is not possible for any of the vaccines to give anybody coronavirus, or for anybody who has been vaccinated to give anybody else coronavirus because of the vaccination. So we encourage people to understand what the situation is. We have been giving vaccinations for many, many years. I don't think I've known of any case where anybody who have gotten a polio vaccine would have given somebody else polio because of the vaccination, and other vaccines as well. Measles, mumps, and rubella, we've given somebody the disease because they've gotten the vaccine. So I implore people to look at really and truly what the vaccines are about and what they're for, and to be guided accordingly. These are children we're dealing with. We are dealing with children who are at the formative ages of their development, of their personality, the formative ages of being, trained and being developed to perform as active citizens in the country. So we have to treat them respectfully to ensure that their rights are protected and that all children are brought up in a way that protects the health and well-being, both the physical health and well-being and the mental health and well-being as well.
I just want to say to there's a lot of questions and views online, and I just want to say to those persons who are viewing online is that we're hearing your questions, we'll be a little slow to get back to you, but we will get back to you on some of these questions. Any more questions for the health team? Going once, going twice, 3 times, gone. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Premier.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Rogers. I must also apologize for the absence of the Honourable Minister of Social Development and Education, Ms. Deanne Kentish Rogers, who is also out of state. And so I omitted that apology in my initial introduction. I'd also like to say that the Parliamentary Secretary, the Honourable Quincy Gomes-Murray, recently attended the COP26 in Glasgow, and by all accounts represented Anguilla well, and now has joined the Premier for the JMC. I would like to also pause to recognize the presence at COP26 of Mr. Devon Carter, and I know the experience and the contacts made will be invaluable, and we must thank the Honourable Minister of Economic Development, Environment, for facilitating the participation of the Honourable Parliamentary Secretary and Mr. Carter. As you would also note from yesterday, BBC World Service, our esteemed Premier, Dr. Ellis Webster, attended a remembrance ceremony at Cenotaph to lay a wreath on behalf of Anguillians in remembrance of those who fought in the Second and First World War. Over 19,000 Caribbean nationals fought in the First World War, and we know that Evan Gomes, Louis Guichard, Charles Bryan, and Evan Richardson and Hubert Carty underwent training in St. Kitts and Antigua in preparation for the battle. However, The war came to an end, and they were discharged in August 1946 before being called to the battlefield. I must also make special note of Mr. Peter Carter and Mr. Johnson Emile Gumbs, who fought in the First War. Mr. Carter also received 2 medals, a Victory Medal and a British War Medal, and survived the war. Many others fought as part of the U.S. Armed Forces, and it's unfortunate that I do not have their names. I contacted Mr. Carvel Petty, and we could not research at the time, but we remember them and honor their service. I would also like to ask the Honorable Ministerial Assistant responsible for sports, youth, and culture to update us and take any questions if you may have.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's been a while I've been up here. Before I start my presentation, I'd like to send out some congratulations to the female under-17 team that took part in the CONCACAF tournament in Miami a few weeks ago. The last 2 games drew 1. Unfortunately, in their last game, they were short-handed for various reasons, but they put up a valiant fight. So I want to say congratulations to them. And also to the male under-20 team that just competed in their tournament. They too, watching the games, put up a very, very good fight. They lost 3 games, drew 1, but in every game they were very, very competitive. So I just want to say congratulations to our young people. When our young people are doing well, it's always a good thing. Just a few updates from some work that we've been doing in terms of sports with the sports department. We've been actively working on the Anguilla Sports Act. A working group was put together, and for the last year, they've been meeting regularly. We also have a consultant from Trinidad, and the act is close to completion. We'll be going to the Attorney General Chambers shortly. Dot the I's, cross the T's, and then we'll be bringing it to public consultation. The act is looking to cover some short-term, mid-term, and long-term goals, such as when representation is sought for athletes, how do we deal with it with companies? You know, I know even personally that's always has been a big back and forth with athletes getting time off to represent our country. So we are going to be addressing that in the Sports Act. Provisions for persons with disabilities, doping in sports, those things we'll be looking to cover in the Sports Act. We've done some recent upgrades to some of the basketball courts, some work that have started quite a while back with support from the Social Security Board. Western Court and the Valley Court, they have been completed, painted, lights up. The Island Harbor Court is still in progress, and we are hoping by the end of this week the lights would be up and they can start playing in the night. Natal Court has been painted. The lights should be up in a few weeks. I know the guys are doing preparation in terms of the construction to put up those lights. We have some upgrades to some football fields in a partnership that was established with FIFA and the local association. So far, 3 fields have been worked on. That's the Owen Mussington Field in East End, the Aurelia Kelly Primary School, and the Adrian T. Hazel Primary School. And these should be completed by December of this year and ready for play. The government has also provided a lease to the Anguilla Football Association for the area known as the Annex. That's east of the current football field for the development of a turf field. That's an artificial field, so the guys can train when the fields are still wet. That's something that hampers our training now. So we'll have an artificial field. That project will be going underway shortly. I spoke to the president a few weeks ago. The technicians came in to check the ground and to see all the preparatory work was done, and that's looking to start in the first quarter of 2022. Last year, we did a fitness standard test for the elementary school. And this was an overall fitness test. The data was collected from just over 1,100 students over 2 weeks by 30 volunteers. The analysis of the data collected is being conducted, and a report on the performance of our children against international standards would be available by the end of the year. It is also envisioned that these results would also begin to identify some trends and indicators of the overall health and status of our children. As we all know, a healthy nation is a good nation, and we see trends worldwide where a lot of our youngsters are trending to obesity. Those of us who might have born in a few years ago know that we always were outside running around, but nowadays everybody have Xbox, G-Box, and all kind of tacky-tax things that keep them entertained and keep them glued to their seats. So we really want to know how this is affecting our youngsters and what we can do to address them. So this is the first step that the department has taken in addressing this, to see where we are, so we can know what trends we need to fix. For volleyball, we have an international coach that is here, Cuban-born coach Francisco Cruz Jimenez. He's better known as Panchi. He arrived on the island on Saturday, November 13, and he is expected to work with the Department of Sports and the Anguilla Volleyball Association in the development of the sport over the next 3 months. Francisco Cruz most famously coached the Trinidad and Tobago senior female team to a 10th ranking in Nautical. Nautical is the equivalent of CONCACAF in football. It covers the North America and the Caribbean region. And the USA and Canada are the only other 2 English-speaking countries that have ever been to the top 10. Mr. Jimenez will be mainly focusing on coaching and player development and the establishment of programs for talent identification and development. A few weeks ago, the Minister Kendish Rogers, myself, the Permanent Secretary, and the Director of Sports, we had a meeting with the British Olympic Association, trying to see what links we can establish with our UK partners. I mean, we've been hearing for a long time, we give them the talent, what do we get in return? So we started those conversations, just trying to see what doors we can get open. And through those conversations, we have been able to secure a coaching scholarship. And Ian Connor, better known as Coach Tucker, those in the sporting world know that he's a professor of sports of SAT, real mastermind when it comes to sports, and I think he's a great candidate to be getting this scholarship offer. He's going to be attending the International Coaching Enrichment Certificate Program, and this is going to be conducted by the University of Delaware. So we wish Coach Tucker all the best and good luck. Just one plug here, Sports Week is coming up, so all the government departments, get your teams together. It will be taking place from December 5th to 11th, and I know the department will be coming up with all the information that everyone is going to need. In terms of drag racing, I hesitated whether I should mention this, but I think it's worth mentioning because this is something that has been dragging along, no pun intended, forever, forever and ever. But Minister Hodge and myself had a meeting with them a couple of weeks ago. We are scheduled for another meeting on Thursday, and I won't jump ahead of myself, but we are making great progress, and we're going to have great news for the Drag Racing Association. I know the guys, wherever they meet us, they are always, what's happening, and we see it as fairly simple fixes, and we will get past those hurdles. that's my update for now. Thank you.
First quick question. Has Mr. Connor left the island already for coaching?
No, he'll be doing it online. Don't have the exact dates as when he started, when he's supposed to start, but I will definitely get back to you on that.
You made mention that the Anguilla of FIFA is developing the fields, the football fields. Will there be faceted fields?
Yes, there will be. If you would have noticed, two of the fields, they're actually on school grounds, and it's a partnership, so schools, communities will still have full access to these fields. It will be accessed by all to be used. This is something that's needed in communities. I mean, I know some of the teams, and football sometimes get a knock for using up a lot of grounds, but we only really have one official football field in Anguilla. The addition of these 3 fields now would ease a lot of the guys now having to train on what's, in a lot of cases, unsuitable areas. You know, I've seen the walk, it's top walk, sprinkler system, imported grass. We've used some of our best landscapers to lay the turf. So they're going to be top class fields. We just asked, because I saw a picture circulating from the department a few weeks ago, just as the grass was laid, someone chose to drive a vehicle on the fields. So we just asked persons, I mean, please take care of these fields. FIFA have contributed some good funding to us, so let's take care of the fields. I'm sure that person could have drove around or what have you, but they choose to park right on the field with their vehicle. We can't be having those things.
I know recently the government of Anguilla congratulated Haydn Hughes for signing a pro contract. In reference to that in itself, what does that mean for sporting in Anguilla, particularly cycling?
That means a lot. I mean, you know, many of our athletes, regardless of whatever sport they're taking part in, once in an athlete, the aim is to reach the top of your game. And when we have a lot of promising young cyclists, I know it's a couple press conference cycles since the team went to the Dominican Republic and in Antigua, but we had our cycling team went there and they did well. And amongst those we had some young promising cyclists, and if they can mimic the hard work that they've seen Haydn put in, I myself was a cyclist of some sorts, and I can tell you, trying to ride around this island 2-3 times, you realize Anguilla's a hard place to train. And watching Haydn put in sometimes 5-6 hours on his bike in a day, I mean, this should serve as inspiration to a lot of persons. I know before he left to go to the US, he was coaching some of our youngsters, and we saw the improvements. Unfortunately for COVID, a lot of our cyclists couldn't go overseas and compete against other nations, but you have, even in the local races, you could have seen the improvements from the ones he was training. And I know they have that connection with him. So serving as an inspiration to those youngsters, that's going to be easy for them.
I know there was an outbreak of COVID with the senior team. Was there an outbreak of COVID with a female team also?
Yes, a few of the girls did test positive. That was the main reason why we ended up playing our last game short-handed. 2 days ago, when I contacted the president, 3 of the players had returned to the island, and at that time they were waiting for the other 2 to clear protocols to return.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. I would expect a lot of questions about sports from Lloyd. Lloyd was the former manager of the elite running club back in the early 80s when he was a young man, but now he's a senior citizen. He has since retired. Yes, Lloyd.
The Road Elite Sports Club. Yes. Quick question. What are the plans in terms of highlighting Shara and Zarnel?
I won't go into much details right now, but we are actively working on some stuff for them. We are actively and aggressively working on some stuff for them. But I won't go into details right now. I understand there's a question online about boxing. Myself and the director met with the association for boxing roughly about 4 weeks ago. And the Boxing Association, we required some information of them, and they are compiling that information. I know chief amongst the concerns for boxing is the area where they use for training. It's not properly ventilated, which is definitely not a good area for training. But one of the concerns is that the ring we are using right now, it's elevated, so you need a particular high building to store it, and those buildings are not in easy order to obtain here in Anguilla. The association, through some contacts, working on getting a training ring which would lay flatter and can easily be put in basically any type of building. But we are meeting with the Boxing Association. They have some issues that we are ironing out with the association. Like I said, myself, the director, met with the association, and we are trying to iron through those issues.
Thank you very much, Lloyd. I remember last year we had a great event held here in Anguilla called the Thriller in Anguilla. And I was looking forward to seeing that event back in Anguilla. And Hillary doing some damage again. Be that as it may, we have with us the CEO of S.A.F.E. I know it's been a long time you've been here with us. And we have a lot of exciting things that are happening around the ports. We have American Airlines that are coming to our shows very shortly. This weekend we have Cape Air that will be coming directly out of St. Thomas twice a day. And the CEO is here. He can give an update as it relates to the airlines and also of the work that is going on relating to the ports.
Thank you very much, Honourable Premier, Acting Premier, and thank you very much to the audience here. It was refreshing to hear the lady from the Herald spoke about her experience coming through the airport. As you know, due to COVID, Blind Point Port is no longer our quote-unquote mainstay when it comes to passenger movement, so we have placed a lot of emphasis on how we have persons traverse the aerodrome. As the Acting Premier would have said, there's a lot of work happening at the ports in this quote-unquote downtime, especially infrastructurally. We have had the call to make way for spaces of availability at the aerodrome, so in about a week or two, the space for American Airlines and another airline were made available in the ticketing hall, so persons, once we get to that point, persons will be invited to go over and see the marvelous work. I don't want to get too much involved though at this stanza because I prefer to let people see the work as opposed to speaking about the work. But I will say this though, as the Acting Premier said, I don't normally get a chance to be up here. But let me just say thanks to the board of S.A.F.E. Let me say thanks to the management and staff of S.A.F.E. The COVID we are at the front line, so to speak, when it comes to economic activity via imports and exports via the port. And we have had to hold the brunt of the impacts due to COVID. So let me just say thank you to the management, staff, and board of the S.A.F.E. Thank you very much to the government for patience and understanding. In the Blind Point area, the PS Health would have spoke about the ferries. So ferry vessels, if you're hearing me now, we have been raising this issue daily. It's not weekly or monthly anymore, but daily. So we are always trying to pull in the right direction to make sure that we maintain not only business, but we make sure that we keep ourselves as healthy as possible. Excuse me, as healthy as possible. And for the persons at Road B, Jason and Kenisha and the staff down there, most of the focus has been cargo-centric since the COVID, and I know that you guys have been pulling your weight down there, Franklin and Sandra and Kenisha and other persons in security. So I'm grateful to all the persons who have exercised a great level of patience with the ASPA over this trying period.
I understand you have extended the airport. I haven't been there lately. I plan to go and look. How many extra desks, how many desks do we have now there for airlines?
Originally, American, just to go a bit into the actual work, American would have requested 4 to 6 desks. We were making that headway. Luckily for us, we are accommodating based on the streamline so that the persons at ASPA can accommodate for the future build out of the aerodrome. So American would see 2 desks that are dual, so that basically that's be 4 stations. And we will also have 2 other stations there available when other airlines will call for demand. So for example, you would see a flyer sent out by the Premier and other persons for Cape Air. So Cape Air will be exercising one of those desk area. It will be also remiss of me not to point out that we also plan to improve the area for the health section at the arrival side. So you will see a build out at about 400 plus additional square feet for waiting and testing areas upon the arrival of passengers.
Good afternoon. Mr. Williams, we know in recent times, if we look at the stats coming from the statistics unit, we know that the Bloem Point Ferry Terminal, that's the dominant area where our tourists come in. But basically now what we're hearing with the number of airlines coming in, we anticipate a very busy season and very large numbers of passengers coming in. Do you have an idea, a rough estimate of how busy the airport would be in terms of passengers coming in now that we have direct flights into Anguilla?
Yes, Ms. Senna's very good question, a very good analysis. As I said before, traditionally Bloem Point Port was the dominant passenger port. Due to COVID, now a lot of persons are opting out for air transport. So for us at the ASPA, we don't see it basically as cannibalizing, we see it as complementing. So I'm very happy to see those. Short projections from American, I'm pretty sure that the acting premier would have shared last week. American would have gone from 2 flights a week starting December 11th to 3 flights a week starting from January 5th. The indication from American Airlines is that the booking is very strong. We're looking at probably about 60 persons upon entry and 50 upon departure, somewhere in that region. So that's very strong. The busy day at the airport right now, based on the flights that we have, is going to be a Saturday, where you will have American, Cape Air, Sky High, and of course you're always going to have the private jet traffic and the local aircraft in between. So Saturday is looking to be the busy day in the new year at the aerodrome. So we will need all the human resource and all of the cooperation of the different stakeholders to make that possible.
And I anticipate probably they were training for immigration officials in terms of trying to get a smooth exit, in terms of
Indeed,
passengers.
we have already begun that process. As a matter of fact, Jabara Harrigan and Kendall Richardson from the ministry, we have done some time trials just to make sure to see that we are ensuring that persons are not in the health area too long, persons not at immigration too long, persons not at customs too long, and persons can get the train onto the taxis to their destination as seamlessly as possible. So we have been doing those quote-unquote drills.
Mr. Hughes, we know earlier in the year you did an interview, I think around June 23rd, with Mr. Keith Stonegraves, and for the first time that is the time when I realized that we actually had an aviation unit. You spoke about that with Mr. Kendall Richardson. You delivered also the numbers in terms of the revenue that was collected during that time, but however, due to the pandemic, the numbers were reduced. I'm just wondering, can you speak to the aviation unit, the generation of monies, especially in light of the anticipation of American Airlines and other airlines coming on stream?
Thank you, Felicia, for that question. I don't have the figures in front of me, but I can tell you that based on what our initial budgets were, we are fast exceeding those numbers in terms of revenue generation from the aviation unit. Next week, I probably can, sometime during this week, can give you that information. But we omitted that we'll also have Aurora Airlines, and Tradewind Aviation is looking at coming back to our shows as well. I can prematurely announce that if it may be. So it's going to be a very busy time at the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport. So we're very excited about it. As the CEO said, we're doing a lot of work over there. Where the restaurant previously was, that has been taken out, and we are retrofitting it to ensure that the desk space is there. Our seating should be here sometime in the very near future to facilitate the tourists that are coming in and out. And also we are building, where there was a tent previously, we are retrofitting that space to ensure that persons can be in a comfortable location when it comes to the testing and so forth. So there's a lot of work that is going on at the airport to improve the facility to ensure seamless movement of passengers in and out of the Clayton J. Lloyd International.
Are these new airlines that are coming in, are they using local people to work at their desks and help with?
Well, for the most part, a lot of them are using the ground handling that is already in place, the existing FBO. There's an existing FBO, as you know, at the airport. For the most part, a lot of them are using the existing FBO, but in the absence of that, yes, they are.
Just a follow-up on Brenda's question. In reference to technicians, we know that all of these airlines are coming in. How are we equipping our locals in reference to being able to fill these positions that are going to be available for service over at the airport?
Well, I would like the CEO to answer this question as it relates to those things, because these come with certain regulatory issues.
Yeah, thank you very much for that question, Lloyd. What we are doing, what we are seeing right now is the airlines, they have an integral part to play, and they want to be able to train local persons. They don't want to get caught up in having foreign persons come here and basically execute two contracts. But they would prefer to have one contract, which is the FBO / a local person here, undertake those services. So what we are doing is, especially for American Airlines, they're bringing personnel here on island to train not only ASPO, but also the FBO. And then we have opted to have persons become, quote unquote, train the trainer, so that those persons can become certified to train persons as they come on stream and they are employed through that whole employment loop and stuff like that. So the aim is not to have persons come on island and live and work. The aim is to have the local persons train up so that they could train other persons who are here locally.
I have a question, either Mr. Williams or Mr. Hughes can answer. In terms of the ferry boat operators, we know no date has yet been set in terms of when that service will start. But I'm just wondering if in your deliberations and meetings with the ferry boat operators, have there been any discussion in the potential cost and the increase of the service during the time? In terms
of numbers, no, but we do know that persons have been strained. We do know that, but in terms of actual tangible numbers, no.
We have had several meetings with the ferry boat operators, and at no point in time did the issue of raising the fees come up. We know they have been under severe stress for a very long time. Some of them have been paying a significant amount of dock fees, but they are getting their boats ready. We are walking through the protocols. We are listening to the public. We are evolving our protocols to meet what is happening, not only across the globe, but to ensure that our people are safe and to give us as much opportunity as possible. A question just came in online, and I want to address it publicly, and that is whether or not the government of Anguilla is giving any minimum revenue guarantees to American Airlines, and the answer is no. American Airlines is not asking for any minimum revenue guarantees, but we want a successful American Airlines, so we will do everything that we can to promote the service. This is the first time in the history of Anguilla that we have commercial transatlantic flights into Anguilla, and the partnership that we have already developed, and the CEO can probably speak to that a little more. I don't know if you might.
You're absolutely correct, Mr. Hughes, in terms of revenue guarantees, not only for American Airlines, but no airline has asked for revenue guarantees to kind of hedge the operations at Anguilla. The aim for Anguilla with American Airlines is for the Anguilla populace to support this endeavor by traveling that American routes, going to Miami and back to Anguilla as much time as possible. That's the hope.
Fact is that based on present bookings for December, has necessitated the need to have an additional flight starting in January, and the numbers are definitely looking good, and it makes it easier for us, you know, whereas we can even do a quick getaway if we choose to from Anguilla to Miami on a Saturday and return on a Monday, return on a Wednesday if you're as free and spirited as Mr. Pickering. I don't know if there's any more questions relating to ALF, the airport, ANC ports, for the CEO. If there's no other questions, then I would like to have the Minister of Economic Development, Commerce, Industry and Natural Resources, it's a long list, to give an update on his ministry, because there's a lot of exciting things that are happening over there in that ministry, and I would also like to thank the CEO for joining us, and thank you for joining us on short notice as well. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Acting Premier. Before I get started, I want to welcome to the panel Mr. Vincent Webster, Fisheries Officer from the Fisheries Department. I was privy to a session on Friday where the Joint Nature Conservation Committee made a presentation on Anguilla's stony coral, and they would have discovered the disease called stony coral tissue loss. So I've invited Mr. Webster to pretty much speak about what that is, what it means, the work that he has been doing with this committee. He is on the front lines, he is in the ocean himself, so he sees exactly what is happening. So I turn it over to Mr. Webster to give us an update, and if you have any questions, you know, you can pose them to him. Thank you.
Okay, good afternoon all. So this workshop, which was headed by two representatives, one of those representatives being Dr. Greta Abbey and Abby Dosel, which is from the JNCC. Dr. Greta is a subcontracted individual she's based in Hawaii, and she's got her PhD in coral diseases. So her knowledge of coral is expansive, and our staff were lucky enough to be a part of this workshop beginning on Monday last week. And to mine, it was a new area for me, especially her depth of knowledge of coral throughout the world, not just Hawaii. She's been all over the world. Currently, she's in Turks and Caicos. She's just left us yesterday, and she will be in the Maldives also. So it just shows her global influence and knowledge. So the workshop started out with classroom-based sessions, which we attended 2 of those. And the initial session was to get up to, catch up on knowledge. A lot of the fisheries officers wouldn't be so versed in coral knowledge as her. We have very basic knowledge of the corals we have around here, as we do a marine monitoring program on a yearly basis. So we know common names, things like that. So she brought us up to date on coral ID, and basically how to assess and treat coral that would have this stony coral tissue loss disease. So to cut things a little short, she ran through all of that quite quickly with us, how to assess and treat, and the process is quite complicated. It can be very hard to identify diseases in the water. She made a very solid point about that. She said assessing these diseases can be quite difficult. So she told us the basic ways what to look for and what you can suspect if certain things are seen. So moving past the classroom workshops we had, we then went into in-water surveys. So that started out relatively rough because everybody was new to everything. So executing these exercises was brand new for our staff, and we were quite a small staff too, of 3 divers for the week, which was quite a workload to take on for 3 divers. But we still managed to get it done, and the weather conditions weren't so favorable either. So we were working in rough weather. We were closer to shore. The initial site we picked for the first in-sea workshop was a site we have on our marine monitoring program, which is Black Garden, Limestone Bay. So we got in the water. We started to try and identify disease corals. We found 1 or 2. Her prognosis when we got out of the water initially of that particular site was quite good. She said we may have the presence of the stony coral tissue disease, but it's not at such a bad stage that we would be able to prevent it quite easily with treatment. So we mapped the area. We used an array of different things. For the mapping, we used concrete nails underwater, so we were hammering in concrete nails underwater to map out along the spine, which is a 50-meter transect, which is used, which is a tape that we use underwater, which is weighted. So we'll line out 50 meters underwater, and we mapped every 5 meters with a mark flag tape and a tag that's numbered. So we did roughly 10 tags. So that's lined out now, the mapping area where we will be surveying for the next couple of months to keep an eye on our progress with this treatment. So we found maybe 3 individual coral colonies that had disease present, and we started the treatment process on Saturday, which was the last day of the workshop, because we couldn't get to do it on the second day because the conditions were worsened from the first day. So we left treatment to the last day. So the treatment process is a chlorine treatment, which is different to what other nations would typically use. Antibiotics are typically used to treat coral as of right now, but antibiotics, the coral can become immune to the antibiotics, so it's not an amazing treatment to keep going. So they want to find a different, this treatment, the chlorine treatment that they're using right now, is a very early stage kind of treatment. It's going through the processes of being monitored and seeing if it's good. So anyhow, the treatment is chlorine and cocoa butter. So you can get, we need powdered chlorine. You get chlorine tablets, you crush them up, and you mix it with the cocoa butter. And we have this specific modeling clay that we brought in from the US to be able to stick on the coral. It's like a Band-Aid nearly. So we fill these clay strips and lay it on the coral. And the chlorine actually activates when it hits the seawater, and it'll burn the pathogen and bacteria that's present on the coral. So what in actual matter of fact it does is kills whatever is in the presence of that chlorine and cocoa butter mix. So therefore you will stop the spread of the pathogen or bacteria, and the coral might be able to re-inhabit that dead area. It's a possibility, but the important part is that it'll stop the spread of the disease and the pathogen and allow the coral to reproduce on a yearly basis, which is what we really want, because stopping, getting to treat all the coral is pretty much impossible. The disease is present here in Anguilla. The site that we mapped out wasn't so bad, as I said, but the doctor went to the Long Reef site, which is east of Prickly Pear. So we were towards the head of the reef, and she saw up there a lot of disease. She was very concerned, and she said if we don't act quickly and if we don't act efficiently, we could lose a lot of our coral species quite quickly, within months, years. It's very, very possible for us to lose. She said one of the more susceptible species of coral is our brain coral, which are very beautiful underwater, and 90% of those could die within the next 3 to 4 years. 90% would be wiped out. Our montastrias, which is another coral species, a quarter of those might die, and some other species that can be very heavily affected. So she was very concerned. She loves the reefs here. She was in awe of the beauty, and she said we really need to get going on this, and that we need more help, more divers. We need to get acting on this as quickly as possible. So the training was very eye-opening. It was amazing for us to be able to get these in-water workshops done, and it puts things into perspective about our reef health. I had no idea that our reef health was so poor, especially the ones that are further out from Anguilla itself. So it's definitely a shocking find. But that was basically the majority of the workshop was us doing that.
Questions?
First of all, can you please spell the name of the instructor?
Greta?
Greta.
Yeah, so it's Greta.
What was the other name?
Abbey, so it's Abey, Dr. Greta Abbey.
Dr. Greta Abbey.
Yeah.
Okay. And then to follow on with that,
Mm-hmm.
my question is, if you're putting chlorine in the coral and in several of the reefs and so on, what is the reaction for the fish who are around that coral? I mean, obviously that must have been considered, but it's something that comes to my mind.
Of course. You see, so the clay we use is a specific clay which actually keeps the chlorine and the cocoa butter on the coral itself. So it's sealed, and after the reaction has happened, after a little while, the sea movement and tides and surge will actually remove the clay. And the clay is a special clay that does not react with the environment, so it's inert. It doesn't do anything, and it's completely harmless. Yeah. Chlorine and cocoa butter. So the cocoa butter, cocoa butter. So you can get it in your hair shops, whatever. But the main reason for the cocoa butter is to delay the reaction. So it's to keep the chlorine inert until the seawater is present. And it's just a nice way of molding on to the plasticine, the clay that we use.
How does this disease affect the coral itself?
So the disease, it's a tissue loss disease. So what happens is the coral actually has a symbiotic relationship with algae, which they call zooxanthellae. I'm pretty bad at the pronunciation, but it's a symbiotic relationship that algae will have with the coral, and it's responsible for pigmentation and a couple of other things. So when that leaves, the coral automatically loses color and it'll become white. So and the coral depends on this relationship for nutrients, etc. So when the algae leaves, it starts a process of decay for the coral, and the coral will eventually die within weeks to months of the absence of this algae.
Any more questions for Mr. Webster? All right, so I'd just like to thank Mr. Webster for coming here and giving us this brief description as to what they have discovered. Of course, we know the importance of coral reefs. They protect our coastline from erosion, and they're also breeding grounds, nurseries for the many species that we enjoy, that we survive on economically, and also for our diet. All right, so Mr. Webster, thank you so much. You can leave if you wish. All right, to continue on with my updates, in the absence of Mr. Kenneth Hodge, Minister of Home Affairs, I just want to give a brief update. There have been a lot of talk recently about the work permit situation in Anguilla, and we have gotten some information directly from the Labor Department as it relates to work permits in Anguilla. There's a number that is going around, 672 work permits issued. So just to give some context, again, this is information from the ministry, from the Department of Labor. So at some point, this information will be released to the media houses, whether it's the newspaper or whatever other media it is. Out of 672 work permits issued in Anguilla, that number, 22% is representative of the hospitality and the villa sector, which means that there are 78% of that number, if you want to work up the maths, Minister, while you're there on your calculator. But 78% of 672 work permits issued spreads across supermarkets, hardwares, beauty and hair salons, law offices, construction, heavy equipment, and it goes along professions of pastors as well, accountants, nurses. It's a wide gamut of professions that number is representative of. Babysitters, barbers. There's a long list that will be released. But just to inform the public that the 672 work permits are not only for the hospitality sector. Just to repeat, it's the hospitality sector represents 22% of the 672 work permits issued. So in the absence of Minister Hodge, I just wanted to relay this information to the media and to the public. A substantive release will be given to the media. Within the Ministry of Economic Development, we have a scheduled meeting this week, Thursday the 18th of November at 2 p.m. This is at the Teachers Resource Center, and this meeting is a meeting with the Chamber of Commerce and the members of that organization. And this is to directly hear from them of the issues that they're facing, the challenges that they're facing in this current COVID climate. You know, the global economics is taking place. There's inflation, shipping delays, shortages, blockages. There's so many things happening currently globally that is affecting us locally. And our department, our ministry, we are keen to address the many issues that are plaguing our small economy and our business sector. So we have opened up an invitation to the Chamber of Commerce and their membership to meet with them face to face, to have a dialogue, you know, and to see how best the ministry can mitigate towards the issues and the high costs that they're facing on a weekly basis. From time to time, I would normally get some calls, WhatsApps from many business owners in Anguilla. But this is now an opportunity as a group to register the issues that are being faced in the business sector here in Anguilla. Further on, in the Economic Development Unit, we are working on an investment promotion agency. The Trade and Investment Unit of the Ministry of Economic Development, Investment, Commerce is working on a policy that shapes Anguilla's first investment portal. You see the likes of Invest Barbados, Invest Nevis, and I think there's Jampro in Jamaica, which actively promotes their countries. So Anguilla now is working on its own Invest Anguilla, Reside in Anguilla portal. That will be a website marketing Anguilla, promoting Anguilla globally in terms of what we have to offer, areas of foreign direct investment, areas of diaspora direct investment, and also areas of local investment, as well as how government can facilitate public-private partnerships. So for instance, we can say that government is desirous of seeing a nursing school in Anguilla. We can say that government is desirous of seeing a hospitality school in Anguilla, and how government is willing to help, what incentives government is willing to give, and what we expect to see in return. So this portal will be one that promotes this country and promotes various packages and incentives, and basically streamlines the processes as to how to invest, doing business in Anguilla and what's not. So right now, we have a draft policy, and this draft policy, we will be taking it to consultation pretty soon, where we can get direct feedback from members of the public and the various stakeholders in Anguilla. And once that process is through, then we go straight ahead to building out this website and what it should look like. On the FDI side, foreign direct investment, we continue to see an increase in interest in either new projects or the revival of projects either affected by COVID or that was affected by Irma. We have the Dolphin project in Blom Point, cul-de-sac, that is set to return early next year. The investors, the developers of that project, they should be on island doing the initial surveys of the damages and what it will take to get that project up and running again. Of course, we know the Dolphins were transferred to St. Kitts Nevis right after Irma. There's still an existing MOU with that project, so they are slated to return. Last week, we would have taken to Executive Council the MOU for a new medical school. I'm happy to report that MOU was approved through Executive Council, and now it's only a matter of time where that investor will be on island to sign that MOU officially. And we just, as government, we want to wish them the best. They are slated to, if all goes well, to have feet on the ground May 2022. So as a government, we are delighted to embark on this MOU with that developer and to wish him much success as he looks to introduce a new medical school in Anguilla. We want to wish both medical schools much success. We've had St. James Medical School around for 10 years or so, and we just want to be able to see both of them work in Anguilla for the interests of themselves and both Anguilla. For me, that's pretty much it. Any questions?
So Hodge, in terms of the medical school, is this a medical school that will be located somewhere in the West? Okay.
Yes. So there's a temporary location for the school in the interim. They'll be located in the West, just above Mangoes. The name slipped me. The Carabella area, the Carabella units, that will be there for temporarily until they build out their permanent structure. So plans are in place for them to, over the period of 5 to 10 years, to be able to build a permanent structure to be able to carry out their medical school services here in Anguilla.
Be physical, but I think in the past you've mentioned online medical schools as well. How will this benefit us?
Yeah. We continue to discuss MOUs with other schools. There's one more medical school that is in the works right now to be a physical school. I think there's also an MOU, if I'm not mistaken, for an online medical school. I'm not sure what the latest update on that is, but for now, we've just completed this MOU where this is a physical school on the ground here in Anguilla. And how will it benefit us? You have students that will be coming to Anguilla in the hundreds annually, and they're gonna rent, they're gonna lease, they're gonna purchase vehicles, they're gonna stay in Anguillian homes, Anguillian apartments. They're gonna consume, and I think that's one of the biggest benefits to this all. But outside of that, this is a form of tourism. You know, this is medical tourism, and they will expose Anguilla to not just themselves, but to their family members as well. So overall, it's a plus for Anguilla. It's a plus for the economy. It increases our population on a 3-year basis. I think every 3 years they will rotate students. So you know, it's good overall for Anguilla and the people of Anguilla. You know, like other MOUs, we've included social covenants in this MOU, and you know, this particular school, you know, they are not waiting until students are on the ground to begin their social covenant. They've already invested in the library, and they have many more things that they propose to do to help the people of Anguilla in areas of need.
The benefits of having a medical school on the ground, but my question was, I think before you intimated that you were also in discussion with online medical schools. So I was just seeking some clarification as to how would we benefit with online medical schools?
Yeah, that's a very good question. The proposal came in, and you know, I also wondered, you know, how would it work? So it's something that we're exploring at the moment, but there are fees that they will have to pay. So I'm trying to figure out how will it benefit the investor, the developer. So it is something that we continue to discuss, to seek and find ways of how it can be beneficial to both parties. So we are in the exploring phase of that opportunity right now.
Note that a consistent feature in all of the memorandums that have been negotiated with this government is a social component, and all of them have already started delivering on the social component. The Honourable Minister spoke of the contribution to the library and upgrades to the library that the medical school is going to contribute, but they also already invested in ACAN and have adapted ACAN. So there's a significant social component, including scholarships and the like. And you'll see that not only in the medical schools, but also in the development projects that are coming on stream that we don't want to preempt and speak to as yet. But there's a number of development projects that is being worked through the ministry that you will see a significant social component too. While I say that, you will also note that with the Aurora memorandum, not only are they contributing an MRI machine, but also they have already invested in the upgrades at the Clayton J. Lloyd International Airport. So those investments in those social components are already bearing fruit based on the negotiations of the Honourable Minister and the Honourable Premier. If there's any other questions, I'll just give a sorry? Lloyd? Lloyd?
Definitely, Deep Fate was launched, and we say congratulations to the Fabian brothers in Island Harbor for their confidence and their courage, you know, to take this sector seriously and to take it to the next level. Deep Fate is one of those vessels that will go out for multiple days. You know, it is proposed that they will be spending 4 to 5 days out at sea. Government of Anguilla is very supportive of this initiative, and you know, we are doing our best to see how we can facilitate finding markets for them. You know, what is going to be huge in the development of this sector is a fish processing plant. That is not, you know, we are still figuring out ways to see whether it's going to be a private investment. I know the fisheries department, they're writing numerous proposals. So seeking funding for, you know, government to be able to also build such a facility. But in the interim, you know, these guys will be out there. I think they're going to be launching next week, Mr. Kano. They're going to be getting out there next week to explore the oceans, to explore our 200 nautical miles, and we support the initiative highly.
Are there going to be any protocols in place for persons going out for extra days on the ocean when they return?
Protocol is to have a tracker, and that way, you know, the folks would know where exactly they are at all times. And once they remain in Anguilla's water, then there's no need for them to be testing or to be going into quarantine. They are in Anguilla's water and they are on the north side, so that helps. They'll come back in and go back out as usual.
Assuming that they will contract COVID from the fish over on the north side of the island.
In terms of diversification, what plans, incentives you have for farming, manufacturing, and fishing to help the diversification process?
Yeah. So, you know, I've said it over and over. We've granted farmers and fishers duty-free concession on all of their imports. So they would only pay 5% at the port when they import hydroponic structures, greenhouse structures, vertical structures. So they pay 5% at the port. That is one of the things that we did very early on when we came to office. Right now, the Department of Agriculture, they have included in their budget for 2022 the securing of 6 greenhouse structures that we will either lease, rent, give away to selected farmers. You know, we want to see more greenhouse structures set up in Anguilla. And at this point in time, I would like to thank publicly again Andy from Linkus, because he donated one of his greenhouse structures to the Albina Lake Arch Comprehensive School. And we are looking forward to see that structure being put in place. I also would like to publicly congratulate Mr. Karel Richardson as well, because, you know, he is one of the most serious farmers in Anguilla, and he has a huge greenhouse structure that will be constructed pretty soon as well. He just wanted to clear the hurricane season, and he'll begin constructing that hydroponic farm. So, you know, there's a lot of activity as it relates to diversifying the economy, taking food security seriously. The Department of Agriculture, they continue to increase their extension services, and that also includes education, that also includes forecasting, being able to accurately forecast when crops would be available. And that helps to close the gap between the imports of foreign produced food versus locally produced. So we continue to push in this area, and I just want to thank the department for their efforts, and also the PRO, Ms. Trim, doing a tremendous job in reaching out to the supermarkets and hotels and restaurants to bridge that gap.
You talked about dolphin discovery. Are they going to be back in the same place as before? And has the government considered, last time got a lot of, not complaints exactly, but a lot of criticism for having it here in Anguilla. So I just want to know what the benefits are for Anguilla in having it. How much do we make out of it? In contrast to the criticism that we're going to get from tourists.
Dear say, Brenda, whatever you do in government, you'll be severely criticized. If you sneeze too hard, you'll be criticized. And that is part of the nature of the business of politics and governance. And I can recall vividly when the Dolphins were returned to Anguilla. At the time I was the parliamentary secretary responsible for tourism. And there's a number of benefits to the dolphin discovery for Anguilla. Not among them marketing. There's a significant amount of marketing. There's a captive audience that comes to Anguilla for the day. There were literally tens of thousands of people that came to Anguilla because of the dolphin discovery. And the ferry boat operators, the Anguilla Air and Seaports Authority was a significant beneficiary of the dolphin discovery. The ferry boat operators, as I said, there was a number of persons employed. There were 22 people who were employed, gainfully employed at the dolphin discovery. The tow bus ground transportation, because as you know, there was a contractual agreement between the dolphin discovery and the cruise lines, and those persons, once they got to Anguilla, they were towed around the island before they ended up back at the dolphin discovery for the swim and what have you. So yes, you will always have a detractor. I mean, we have been criticized for tethering goats. When I say that, tourists who have seen goats tied, they have complained about the goats being tied and not being able to roam freely. So we have to wrestle with those things and how we can balance economic development and opportunities for the people of Anguilla while ensuring that we have a product that people can enjoy. Things that the Honourable Minister did not mention what we're working on. We're also working on the Ski Prohibition Act because we believe that there should be more opportunities for young Anguillians to get involved in business, and also for more activities for the tourists that come to our show, because you see the evolution of the tourists that come to our shows. When I got into the hospitality industry over 2 decades ago, it was an older clientele, but we have seen that clientele change, age out of existence mostly, and we've seen the whole product have changed and evolved significantly. And when we look at our competitors, such as the Turks and Caicos Islands and even neighboring St. Bart's that have 6 of those companies, and when we see that people are leaving our shows, before COVID that is, and going to other countries just to enjoy that for the day, why not have the young Anguillians having that opportunity in Anguilla? So these are some of the things that we are working on actively. We'll bring into public consultation in the very near future. So if there's another questions for the Minister, I would like to give just a quick update on the Carteret Boulevard and the roads and so forth. So the road network that we were working on in terms of the mill asphalt roads, we're about 80% completed. There's still some that is there's still 2 that is outstanding. As you know, we are working on and I announced this very early in the term that we wanted to pave the road just adjacent to the tourist board, east of the tourist board, where the tourist board parking lot is. So we're going to do that and exit over at the Queen Elizabeth Avenue. So work with that is going to start shortly. They're already starting the surveying and so forth for that particular road. We have received a number of tenders for the development of the Carteret Boulevard from Superior Industrial Equipment, Pearcon, Greg's Trucking and Heavy Equipment, Quality Construction, Sunrise Construction, BSS Construction. Final reviews are being conducted, and contracts should be awarded shortly. When I say shortly, I believe within the next week. Within the next week, by the next time we sit here in this press conference, we'll be able to announce who the contractors are for the development of the Carteret Boulevard. So the actual road work is still estimated to begin in November of this year. As you know, you see a lot of work that is going on right now. This is just preliminary underground works that is going on to ensure that we don't have to dig up a newly laid road. So these are the things that we are trying to get completed. And we have already notified all of the businesses along the Carteret Boulevard at the commencement time. So, you know, and as you can see, the road that leads from the Merchants Market into the Carteret Boulevard was also to help alleviate the traffic. So we are trying to see how much we can facilitate inlets and outlets out of the Carteret Boulevard to facilitate the development of the road. So tomorrow we'll also be meeting with the Lands and Survey to finalize the design and alignment for the road that leads from the Anguilla Tourist Board in to the Queen Elizabeth Avenue. And that will be used as an outlet too for the Carteret Boulevard as we develop that road. So with that said, I see there's no... Yes, Felicia?
Just a final question. This is in relation to, I'm not sure if you saw the latest WhatsApp going around. You talk about criticism being leveled against your administration, even against you. And in this particular WhatsApp, it was mentioned that you called the US president a clown on one of your social media platforms. I'm not sure if you saw it, and do you wish to comment on this?
Well, I would like you to send it to me. If you send it to me, then I can comment on it. Is there any other further questions? Well, thank you very much for coming out. I know it has been a long press conference, and we'll see you. Yes, sir. Actually, no.
Is it true that the government has increased their spending on new salaries for new staffing?
No, we haven't increased our spending. As a matter of fact, every year, the government of Anguilla have to agree to a medium-term economic and fiscal plan. And once that medium-term and economic fiscal plan is agreed upon, that is what the budget is for the entire year. Of course, we had a supplementary recently. And during that supplementary, we said what the spending would be for, and the spending was for the mill asphalt roads for the most part. But we have not increased our spending, even though we have seen the challenges that COVID brings in terms of trying to secure nurses and doctors and surveillance and the like. But there's no increase in spending outside of the budget, normal budgetary exercise, and that cannot be done under our present legislative process. And we can't sneak it in either. Thank you for the question, though, Lloyd, because I have heard that. Thank you very much. So thank you all for coming out. Thank you, Dites, for the awesome job that you continue to provide. Thank you to the press for coming out, and we'll see you again next week at the same time in the same place. Thank you. God bless.